Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 115 of the In a Nutshell podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. Got Joe Meade with me, and today we are previewing Week 9 in the Big Ten football. Joe, we don't really have a great slate here, so let's just get right into it. We're going to start off in Bloomington for big noon kickoff. No Friday game this week. I think that has to do with the World Series starting on Friday on Fox, but logistics. UCLA heads out to Bloomington, where Indiana's 24.5-point favorites for big noon. Joe, does the UCLA magic run come to an end here?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, I can't think of a more appropriate guy than Kurt Cignetti to kind of ruin this magical run. I don't mean that in a biased way whatsoever. It's just the reality of the situation. This is a guy who, until last week, covered in every game. They were 20-point favorites, and I think as of now, it's like 23 to 25, depending on what book you're looking at. So, uh, I think Heisman Doza, I think this is all this game is about. I think he could dice up the secondary. I think he could probably get some first downs with his legs. If I'm Coach Signetti, I probably don't want that to happen because I do think Indiana's next game at Maryland, at Penn State, those could be competitive enough games where you're going to probably want to save your quarterback's legs for. But without knowing Nico's status, I don't imagine he plays. I think they're going to have to rely on Jalen Berger in the running game, and frankly, Indiana relying on that against their defense is not really a great indicator. And whoever this backup QB is, I feel very sorry for because I think Indiana's pass rush is going to be relentless.
Yeah, I think Indiana will take the same approach they did to Michigan State here. They're going to not take any unnecessary risks with blitzes and tight coverage. I think if you want to have a 15-play touchdown drive, I think you probably can. But as soon as you get into third and long, as soon as you get into second and 20, they're going to come after you and make a play. In terms of Indiana's offense, I expect a very efficient effort here. They scored touchdowns on their first four against Michigan State and were inches from a fifth with the heel coming out of bounds in the end zone. But if you're Indiana, just keep that efficient offense rolling. Stay on schedule. Don't get anybody injured. If you do your job, this thing will be over at the end of the third quarter. And shouldn't be anything else other than that. All right, Joe. Noon on FS1, we've got Northwestern heading down to Lincoln to play Nebraska. Both teams here at 5-2 overall. Nebraska just more than a touchdown favorite here at 7.5. Northwestern sort of on a hot streak here. A couple of impressive performances in a row, and Nebraska looking to bounce back from their worst performance of the year.
Yeah, I think this is a game Coach Broad might be licking his chops for. I think the line and just kind of the general underdog feel might be enough for Northwestern to make this a game. I don't love the way Preston Stone played against Purdue. He kind of got the ball taken out of his hands and they kind of relied on the running game. But this is a game where you might be able to do that again to keep this a game. You know, we talked about on the last episode, Sean, the glaring weakness in Nebraska's defense, probably team as a whole, is their ability their weak trench play. They do not defend the run well. Darius Taylor, Justice Haynes, and Jordan Marshall went off on them, as did Brennan Sorsby. So perhaps this is a game Preston Stone might want to implore using the option, using his legs. Nebraska has to respect that aspect because that kind of overwhelms the Huskers. You could tell it's been a pattern. And Coach Braun, being the former defensive coordinator he is, I do think he looks at the ways he can exploit Nebraska's O line. um, I don't know why this line is 7.5. I really get it. I really get it to like Nebraska being favored 4.5, but 7.5 to me is a little rich. Before you go into it, Sean, I'll make my prediction. I think Rayola probably makes a lot of plays in this game to keep Nebraska in the lead. I think it'll just be the game where they out talent Northwestern, unfortunately. If Rayola protects the ball, Nebraska should win this game by a score of I'll give them 31 to 20. Nah, sorry. I'm gonna change that. I'll say 28 to 16 in a very ugly game. But I will say this is a game where if any of the like non-favorite teams are gonna win, this is the one where Northwestern pulls it off.
I'm going Nebraska 24, Northwestern 19, 11 a.m. local kickoff. I don't think Nebraska is going to take many chances here. I don't think It's sort of like playing Iowa, but with less of a degree. Like you're not The other team isn't going to. I don't see Northwestern getting past like 24 here, so I don't think Nebraska's going to push it. It might be a little low scoring. It might be close early, but like you said, Joe, the talent here is a big disparity, and I think I think Nebraska will win, but that's a big number there. I think they win in a weird 24-19 game. All right, Joe, our third noon kickoff here on BTN. We've got Rutgers heading out to West Lafayette to play Purdue. Both teams looking for their first Big Ten win. Somebody does have to win this game, and Rutgers is coming in as at -2.5. But what are you looking forward to in this one?
I'm not looking forward to
Yeah,
much in this one, to be
the
honest.
final whistle. Yeah,
The final whistle. But in all seriousness, I think this is the game where whether it's Ryan Brown or Malachi Singleton, they can kind of get this Purdue offense going again because it was completely hapless against I'd say a decent to good Northwestern defense. I think Rutgers defense, as we've stated a lot of this podcast, has regressed a lot as seen by their performances against Oregon, Iowa. While those teams are good, that's simply unacceptable by a Shiano standard. This is a game I want after Calic-Manis. This is kind of a similar theme for both offenses, getting back on track after being completely shut down uh, by more superior opponents in comparison. Uh, Sean, I'm going to pick Rutgers in this one. I trust Anthony Calic-Manis. I do think Rutgers still has a shot at bowl eligibility. If things somewhat open up for them, they got Purdue. They do have Maryland at home in 3 weeks, and then um, it'll require them that'll get them to 5, and then it will require an upset over an Illinois, definitely not Ohio State or a Penn State who looks as gettable as they have in Shiano's tenure there. So, Rutgers, I think this is the game of their season. This saves their bowl eligibility hopes, and a loss here sinks them. So give me the Scarlet Knights to win this one, 31-27. I do think they make the final stand at the end and force Purdue. I think Purdue pulls out a lot of trick plays, but if we know one thing about Shiano, he also has plenty up his sleeve too and knows how to defend him.
I don't know if this is going to be a high scoring, a low scoring. The total of 59.5 signifies that it'll be high scoring. Both defenses have struggled here. I really have no idea what's going to happen here. I'm going Purdue 30, Rutgers 28. I think it's a field goal at the end that is the difference. But yeah, really, Rutgers' path to bowl eligibility starts with a win here, and it probably ends with a loss. And Purdue is trying to build on what was a pretty decent start to the season effort-wise, and they've just sort of tripped up a little bit here when they probably should have played a little bit better. All right, into the 3:30 slate we go. Big Ten Network has probably the best game of the weekend here in the conference. Number 23 Illinois heads out to the West Coast to play Washington. Joe, both teams 5-2, 2-2 overall. This is as good as it gets for an elimination game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is the Ryan Walters Bowl, former DC for the Illini and now the DC for the Huskies. Uh, to me, I like this line a lot. 5.5 Washington. I think if you overreact or overvalue the Michigan game, you'd certainly pick Illinois to win this one. I think Washington's a great team. I think their offense will give Illinois' defense a lot of problems. I think it required an elite performance from both Michigan and Ohio State's defense to limit Washington because the reality is they're going to get yards. Even though they had the worst performance of the year against Michigan, they got plenty of yards. They had plenty of opportunities to strike in Michigan's territory, and they just didn't. I don't think with Jed Fish and this receiving core and Jonah Coleman that Illinois is going to be able to shut them down. I think what it comes down to, Sean, is Washington just has to play from the lead here. I think Illinois and Bielema are content to be up and make this game ugly. I think Washington has to make this an offensive game because I think although Altmaier and that offense has kind of overperformed my personal expectations for them, I do believe that Washington in a firefight wins this game 9 out of 10 times, especially at home. So give me the Huskies to win this one 35-24. I think this is their get right game. And like I said, Sean, with their schedule, if they win out, they're a college football playoff team. So give me the Huskies to win this one and redeem themselves.
I'm not sure Illinois is the level of defense that can shut down this Washington offense, like
No.
a Michigan or an Ohio State. Ohio State, they have a common opponent. Ohio State went on the road and beat both of these teams handily. It's the bounce back spot for Washington for me. I don't know. I don't know if that's enough to get over the hump, but let's see. Washington 30, Illinois 27. I think this could go either way. Both teams are good enough to win a bunch of games going down the stretch here, and we'll see what happens. But all right, let's get through this one. We got Minnesota at Iowa, Joe. Both teams 5-2, both teams 3-1. Both teams coming off of big wins. What do you got here?
I probably got to go with. I'm gonna go with Minnesota to cover an upset. I really like the way they played last week. I think a healthy Darius Taylor makes Minnesota an extremely dangerous team down the stretch. I like the way Drake Lindsey played efficient, but not forcing too much, which is something he was guilty of in both of their losses. So I think if they maintain that same game plan that they did against Nebraska, I just feel like it's a game where if they could stop Mark Gradowski's legs, I think a lot of things open up for this team. It's going to come down to can they win in the red zone on both sides of the ball? Can Darius Taylor get the short yardage and necessary yardage to finish drives? And can they make Iowa, who's done a great job finishing drives, as Sean pointed out last video, can they force Iowa to kick field goals? I think that's what it comes down to. I'm gonna go against the grain here, Sean. I'm gonna pick Minnesota to win a very ugly game, 21-19. I think Iowa probably gets the ball late but can't cross the 50. I think Iowa will move the ball a lot. I think they're going to be forced to settle for a lot of field goals. So give me the Gophers in an upset, 21-19.
I do think Minnesota will cover. I just don't know if 7.5 is enough against any Big Ten opponent, really. But I think Iowa's going to score their big possession. So give me Iowa 20, Minnesota 15. All right, Wisconsin going on the road to Oregon, Joe. Bottom versus top here. Oregon coming off of a great win against Rutgers. Wisconsin going through the motions. Ducks are 34.5-point favorites here. If this has any headlines from it, that's a bad sign for Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, the only headline that might come from this is if it's bad enough, 2-6 Wisconsin might make a regime change, which I personally recommend against. Different video. We're not going to go on the rant now. Um, I think the Ducks probably make this pretty ugly. I don't think it's going to be like the Oklahoma State score ugly, but uh, I do think this could be the Dante Moore show. I think if they establish any kind of run game, they could get into the 40s. But I'll go middle ground. I think Oregon probably wins this one 34-3.
Yep.
I think it's probably pretty similar to the Ohio State game plan.
Yeah, the quicker this one's over, probably the less amount of points Oregon's going to score, like Ohio State. So I'm going to go 37-3. I just don't. Oregon's defense is pretty good. Their pass rush is there. Like, this is going to be should be an easy win for Oregon. Get your starters out in the middle of the third quarter, end of the third quarter, and hopefully we don't have to talk about this very much next week. All right, Joe, the nightcap. We got Michigan on the road at Michigan State in a rivalry game, 7:30 Eastern on NBC. Michigan 14.5-point favorites on the road here, Joe. That is an incredibly high line for a rivalry game, but we talked about it on our last video. The season really opens up from last week's win against Washington for Michigan, and that starts with a victory here.
Yeah, to me, this game, the three keys for Michigan are they have to keep this simple. They have to match MSU's intensity because this is Michigan State's Super Bowl for so many reasons. Program with Jonathan Smith kind of on the, I think, very much on the hot seat. I think Michigan State, since that 2021 game, hasn't had a signature win. This is a fan base starving for one. And then just the general rivalry night game aspect. I think Michigan State's offense played very well against Indiana. I think the 10, 13 points was very deceiving. This is Aiden Childs is a guy who's going to give defense problems. He gave Ohio State's defense last year problems. He gave Indiana's defense, who I think is very good, problems. This is a game where he might have to be Superman for Michigan State to win. I think their run game is completely ineffective outside of Childs actually carrying it himself or pump faking or RPOing. I think their secondary is very weak. I think their front seven is manageable, but I don't think they've seen a run game quite like Michigan's where they're going to continue to go back to it. So the long story short is for Michigan, they have to keep this simple and they have to get the lead by halftime. I think Michigan State will go on a July drive and score early, and they do very well starting early against Michigan. Michigan in this game just has to weather the storm, take what's given to them, and I think if they do that, they could win. I do think this game will be very, very close at halftime. I could imagine it being like 17-13 at half, and then it might be a slow death by Michigan as they pull away late. I think Michigan does win this game. Shot. I do think Michigan State will put up a heck of a fight. I don't think they're gonna just wilt like some of their fans even suspect they will. I think Michigan wins this one by a score of 34-26. I think, that 26 might be like MSU gets the ball very, very late at their own 10 and they don't really threaten to score at the end. But I'd be shocked if Michigan covered this, which I think is way too much, 14 and a half. And I'd be really, really surprised if Michigan State did not come ready to play because this is the game of their season and this is what saves their season. If they win this, not only for hopes, they're 4-4. The last four games, it's manageable enough to get 2 of 4. So huge game for Jonathan Smith. Huge game for Michigan if they do lose because that destroys their playoff hopes and probably makes people re-question the Sherrod hire as they were a week ago against USC.
Do we know about Justice Haynes? Is he going to be available?
It's very likely he plays
Okay.
as Marlon Klein and Hogan Hansen. So this is a game Michigan has to get ahead and then run the ball in.
Yeah, because like we said last week, Michigan State's run defense good enough. Underwood's going to have to make some plays. I think you have to make Aiden Childs chase the game. You have to get a lead early, as Michigan usually does. And if you make him chase the game, and
Was that sarcastic, Sean?
No. They have to get a lead early. That's how.
Oh no, I thought you meant as Michigan normally does get the lead early.
Oh
'Cause
no,
we never
as
do.
they have to. They
have to,
They
yes.
normally have to get the lead early.
Yes.
If you can make Aiden Childs take a few chances, you could win this game. But if Aiden Childs is playing with the lead, he can use his legs. Like that's where he's his most dangerous, I think. I am gonna give Michigan the nod here because I think Haynes will play and do well. Michigan 31, Michigan State 23. I think it's a good effort for Michigan State.
Yeah.
Like the fans make a push, maybe. But Underwood's gonna make a big play. That's my prediction here. All right, well,
Yep.
that's all we have for you today. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.